Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
As the politicians fail again to come up with a solution to Brexit, preparations for no deal are costing British industry hundreds of millions. Our economics correspondent, Heli Ebrahimi, has got some new numbers. What have you found out?
Chris, there's three new figures I'd like to talk to you about. First, the aerospace industry. We knew that no deal preparations were costing that industry tens of millions of pounds, but tonight I've learned that that figure is much higher. I now understand that £500 million has been spent in the last few months alone on no deal preparations, and that money is irrecoverable, say sources. Second, you have the food and drinks industry, that's our supermarkets. Tonight they told us that the no deal uncertainty is costing them, could cost even more, £100 million a week. That's an astonishing figure, and they say that's because of extra warehousing, it's the result of shipment orders that can't get through customs. And last, Chris, you've got the British Retail Consortium. We spoke to them tonight as well, and they said that in the last few months they've spent hundreds of millions of pounds. Remember that much of our rag and shoe industry comes from outside of the UK, so that industry is particularly vulnerable.
So those are the specific costs to business on no deal, but what about the impact on the wider economy?
Yeah, as you said, those are industry numbers, and they come on top of the estimates that you've heard from the likes of the Bank of England and Goldman Sachs, who say that as much as £800 million a week is being lost from the UK economy. And it's not good news when it comes to financial assets. Last month, the UK banking industry estimated that £800 billion was being taken out of the UK and transferred to Europe. Now they think it's upwards of £1 trillion.
And what's the official data saying on the economy now?
I'm afraid that's negative too. We had PMI services data today showing that 80% of the UK economy is contracting, not growing anymore. And these figures mean that the first 3 months of this year are the worst quarter on record since 2012.
Helia, thank you very much indeed.
Newsnight has been consistently breaking stories that reveal the myriad concerns of NHS leaders about drug shortages linked to Brexit. Tonight, according to top-secret documents seen by Newsnight, we're able to reveal that NHS England and Wales has been unable to stockpile certain key drugs. Not only has this information been shared with a select few clinicians, they've been told to keep quiet about it. Here's Deborah Cohen.
We don't want to see a no-deal scenario in our exit from the EU, but it's incumbent on us to prepare in case. We asked medical suppliers to stockpile a further 6 weeks' supplies over and above normal levels, and that work is going well. We continue to work to ensure the unhindered supply of medicines in all Brexit scenarios.
Health Secretary Matt Hancock has repeatedly told the public the NHS is ready for any kind of Brexit. He says he's ordered supplies to stockpile medicines in the event of no deal. And tonight, Newsnight can reveal that this is not the case for all medicines. We've seen a highly sensitive list of key drugs which have been impossible to stockpile. And although the NHS is concerned, they've shared this list with just a handful of senior clinicians and told them to keep quiet.
The leaked paperwork details that for a small number of medicines, they cannot stockpile the full 6 weeks additional stock. For certain medicines, the supply chain has fragilities with capacity constraints and disruption in production, both playing a part. Included are treatments for epilepsy, bipolar disorder and neuropathic pain, which do not have a short shelf life. Potential shortages of some of these drugs would have a significant impact on patient care, the documents say. But doctors sent the confidential information have been told not to share it. David Nicol is a consultant neurologist from Universities Hospital Birmingham who was appointed a clinical lead for no deal planning and was sent the documents in March. The NHS revealed its concerns over shortages of some drugs to him in order to ask his advice on how best to respond.
Select group of patients.
But Dr Nicol tonight breaches his agreement.
Ultimately, I think this is a public interest issue, and actually there's nothing I've seen in those documents that actually justifies there being confidentiality. In fact, this problem could have been sorted out a lot more easily some months ago if the documents had been more widely shared.
For some drugs on the list, there are stockpiles of alternative brands and formulations, and for many conditions, switching between them does not cause any harm. But doctors have warned that sudden, unplanned changes in the doses or even formulations of epilepsy drugs can put patients at risk.
And it's something the NHS England documents acknowledge. Newsnight is not naming any of the drugs listed in the document as being of concern. But for those affected, disruption in the supply chain might mean a patient's treatment regime would require change and clinical outcomes would be compromised as a result, the documents say.
Absolutely life-changing. If you think about someone who's working, driving, having been essentially seizure-free for a number of years, that is end of driving, that's potentially end of work, okay? Also potential risk of death or injury from seizures. Okay, so it's as serious as it gets.
Some patients have already reported difficulties in obtaining their drugs. Epilepsy charities have told Newsnight there's been a steep rise in patients contacting them to say they can't get hold of their medicines, causing a lot of anxiety and stress.
I don't think they're made in this country.
Gillian Marshall from Newtown in Powys developed epilepsy after she was assaulted and has taken years to get the illness under control through a combination of drugs. But last year, pharmacists experienced a shortage of one of the drugs, meaning Mrs. Marshall was put instead on an alternative. However, a seemingly simple switch from her usual tablets to a different formulation of the same drug meant 3 doses later, her epilepsy took a turn for the worse.
It was, what am I going to do? If I don't get them, what am I going to do? Because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be in and out of hospital. Like I was years ago. I don't want that. I didn't want to go back to that at all. And it was frightening.
After a series of seizures, her fears came true. She ended up in hospital. Mrs. Marshall tried to find out why her supply dried up, and we still don't fully know the reasons why. Clinicians believe that whatever the reason for potential shortages, the government should be clear with doctors that they might occur.
This should be passed through to the medical profession and to patients so that we can make use of this. Instead of this, we're hearing whispers and nods about what may or may not be available in future, and I'm not sure that's responsible.
Like other neurologists, he's seen unprecedented shortages across a range of epilepsy drugs that European colleagues are not witnessing. There's a sense there are likely to be multiple underlying causes, but their occurrence is worrying. And it's not just in neurology.
Medical staff and medical prescriptions should be governed by knowledge about what's available and when it's going to be available. So actually the fear of stockpiling would be forestalled with reasonable information, with forewarning of medical professionals and patients to adequately know what's going to be available and allow themselves to make provision for that.
A Department of Health and Social Care spokesperson told Newsnight.
These issues are unrelated to our exit from the EU, and drug companies have followed the well-established processes we have to manage the small number of supply problems that may arise at any one time. Epilepsy medications are vitally important to many, and we have a multi-layered approach to minimise any supply disruption, whatever the EU exit outcome, including building up buffer stocks and alternative transport routes. We are confident that, if everyone does what they need to do, the supply of medicines should be uninterrupted in the event of a no deal.
Whatever the reasons for the current shortages, senior doctors have expressed concern that the government is failing to inform medics of its inability to stockpile certain medicines. Newsnight is aware that similar lists exist for other specialties, and it's information that may help doctors and patients across the country make treatment plans.
Rebecca Cohen.